Okay, so welcome to, I guess, tanking 101. So I guess when you first get your tank, I guess the first thing is we'll just talk about attributes real quick. Ideally, you want to put as much as you can into health, and then if you need to, you will put um, as many points into stam that you need so that so that your stamina is higher than your magicka. I am a Nord. I technically don't need to do this, but at some point I was wearing Incratus and Elemental Catalyst, which both give magicka, and I never changed it back. I have not worn that set combination in a while, but I just simply never changed it back. It's fine. If you have about 40k health, that's just what you need to have. Not a big deal if you have a little bit less. If you have too much, it's kind of bad at some point, especially if you have those heal checks that or things that like damage that scales off of your max health. If you have like more than like 45 for the most part, or if something like Samaja Execute, if you need to be healed, there's a heal debuff and you need to be healed back up to full health. It just makes it a lot harder, but that's basically it for attributes. 64 into health, and then however many that you need to make magicka or stamina higher than magicka. You basically would worry about this only if you have um, lines on your weapons that give magicka, or if you're a race that gives magicka. That's basic, or yeah, that gives extra max mag. That's the only time you would really worry about this. I'm gonna go really quickly over CPs. I'm not gonna go too much over this because it varies by encounter. Here, the only one that really you could use is liquid efficiency. Tripods are expensive. They're like over a K each these days. They're gross. You can also use rationer if you want, but everything else here is just whatever. No one cares. For blue CP, there's like 5 or 6 that really matter. Unassailable, bulwark. So unassailable gives area of effect. Bulwark is extra resistances for a frost F or a shield, sword and board. Sword and board or ice staff. Enduring resolve for damage over time. Duelist rebuff. There is ironclad. Occasionally you might want to use something like focused mending if you're healing yourself a lot. These ones are for the DPS. These ones are also for the DPS. This is the healer stuff, and some of this crap down here is for PvP by the looks of it. If you are low on CP and you don't have all of the passive ones, just make sure you have things like Blessed. Which one is it? Where's preparation? Forgot where is preparation.
Middle.
Is it in the middle?
Hmm.
There it is.
Inside.
Yeah, like I
Adjustment.
knew it's on the inside of one of them. Preparation. Basically anything that gives you either like something like healing or max stats. The things up here, they don't matter unless except in like very niche situations. Maybe if you're doing DPS as well. Here are these 3 you'll be using quite often. If you are I like celerity personally a lot. I personally never take it off. I think it works well with my playstyle. I like to just move away from the things, but also there's also bracing acre, which makes you slow, and I don't like it. This is my playstyle, but up to you. There is also Bastion right here, which helps if you are doing a lot of shields. I'm a Necro, and I don't have any shields, so I don't use it pretty much ever because no shields. There are also some other good ones like Expert Evasion for roll dodge. Slippery is used occasionally depending on the fight, and basically all of these, it just depends on the fight that you're in. So I can't tell you which CP to use every single time because it depends on your build and your fight. It's so I'm not that's why I'm not going to go too far into it because I could spend like 3 hours on it, and there are people that know better about me than this. For skills, um, so your basics are for tanking that you like always need are your taunts. So you use Pierce Armor for on your sword and board, and Frost Clench on your Ice Staff. This one taunts, and it also has a range of 28 meters when you have an Ice Staff. It also provides some Brittle and Major Maim for 5 seconds. I think Brittle's for 4. And Pierce Armor provides Major and Minor Breach, so you do want to be using both of them because they're different and they are both good. The Major Breach lasts for 15 seconds, so you're good there. If you're in Yolnakrin, you also want to be using another reason to use this. If you're back barring it, which often is what happens, this will proc it. And then you do want to have your own source of major resolve. Sometimes there is a warden healer, and they will usually be providing it. But I think it's a good idea to always have your own because healers die, they might let it drop off, they might disconnect, and then you're on your own. Major resolve, it just reduces essentially the damage that you are taking. You can have your own source of minor resolve. This might be, so a good way to get that is Resolving Vigor. A good way to get that is Resolving Vigor. But healers do provide that with Combat Prayer, so it depends on the encounter. I just grabbed one of my builds for this is a trash build, and I think I'm in PA on this, so that's why I have this. And then you do want to have Wall. It will proc your Crusher enchant. Crusher reduces the enemy's resistances, and DPS like that. DPS like Pen. He'll often have some utility skills, such as, or you also want to have self-heal. Depending on the class, it depends on what it is, but you usually are looking for the heal that scales off of your max health, because you have a lot of that. The other heals often scale off of like max mag or max stam, and that's you don't always have a lot of that. I only have like 15k max mag and like 18k max stam. It's not a lot, you guys. Or sometimes they'll scale off of like weapon and spell damage, and as a tank, you don't have any of that. So max healing or max health. Other things that you might do are that's basically what it is. If you're playing an Arcanist, you generally wouldn't use Pierce Armor. You would use, I think it's Runic Sunder. That's the class taunt, and then that does not provide major or minor breach, but you still need to provide that. You will have to provide it with, so Wall gives minor breach, and so does, I forget what the skill is called right now, but it's your source of major resolve. One of them will give minor breach, and then you can provide major resolve with either Razor Caltrops or something like Elysis. That's basically it. And then you might have utility skills such as a chain pull, or I mean, like I have this for Ulti-Gen. This generates bodies. This does, it generates a body and it takes some of my damage for me, stuff like that. Are there any questions about just what I've talked about so far? Just general how to set stuff up?
So you mentioned a couple of different taunts with the weapon skills. Where does like Inner Fire match in with them?
Inner Fire is generally Inner Fire. You would use it generally. Frost Clench is better in Inner Fire in almost every single situation.
Okay.
because it provides maim and brittle. You would use inner fire in situations if you don't have a nice staff for whatever reason, or you sometimes occasionally have to use the other morph of frost, whatever it is. It's like Frost Reach. That is one reason. The other reason is this immobilizes. This is the main reason, actually, is that
Okay.
Frost Clench immobilizes, and sometimes you don't want that. One of the ads in Mauve Lorcash, you don't want them immobilized, like on the Twins fight. The If you are tanking VSS hard mode on Yolnahkrin, you don't really want to immobilize the Flame Girls if you're changing them under, because they move closer to you as you move under the dragon, and you want to be able to reach them. So if they're out of range, you can't chain them. Stuff like that. Also, maybe in dungeons, if you're doing trash, if you want to taunt stuff, it'll immobilize. But the immobilize doesn't work on elites. So like bigger enemies, and it doesn't work on bosses. So I don't see it as a big problem. I just chain the stuff in regardless, like the stuff that is immobilized. I don't care. So because you can still chain them after you've immobilized them. So I don't see it as a big deal. I'm too lazy to. I just like the skill. The animation is just so much more satisfying to me. So, but yeah, that's basically about it with Frost Clench.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? No? Okay, let's keep going. I'm just going to go on with real quickly with the skills that you do need to have unlocked at some point or another. So I'm not going to go over necro skills too much, but I do want to talk a little bit about passives. You don't need, I recommend reading your passives and make sure you know what they do. There are some passives. I don't know why I have this one unlocked. For example, it gives me penetration. As a tank, I don't need penetration. But you do want to make sure, like for example, from like this one. I mean, you're looking for passives that give you either healing, sustain, resistances, ulti-gen. Like those are important for a tank. So like this will give me some multi-gen, this will reduce my damage over time, healing received for every, and like you want to make sure, for example, here you get more healing for every Bone Tyrant ability slotted, so but you have to be on that bar, so I want to make sure that like this is, especially if if I need a lot of healing, I want to make sure this is on my bar, and even on this one, it says while slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. So I have that on my front bar, and then I also have this on my front bar because it also increases my healing taken. So that's the sort of thing that you want to be looking for. Like you want more max health. That's always nice to have. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. For weapons, generally you are using the one hand and shield, and you want your pierce armor, you want your heroic slash. I talked about this. Heroic slash will give you minor heroism. It's more ulti-gen. You don't always have space for this. In like super sweaty high-end groups, they will use ulti-pots to get that, so they will never use this, but those are really expensive. This it has some nice passives, but this is like my literal only shield as a necro. But one of them reflects and the other one absorbs, just depending on what you need. It's just a shield. This is a gap closer. I've literally never used this, but I'm sure it has uses. This is to proc Void Bash. I will talk about Void Bash a little bit later when we talk about sets. And then Destro Staff, you need Crushing Shock to interrupt. I talked about Wall, your Taunt, LSS, and sometimes you would use Pulsar, mostly in trash, gives you minor protection. Procs, and I think it procs Shield on them. It's a nice skill. For armor, you do want some of the light armor and medium armor passives, 'cause a lot of times you'll be in 7 or 5-1-1. Um, some just depending on like you don't need the stuff that gives you like obvious DPS things or like increasing the cost of or reducing the cost of sneak. You don't care about that unless you also want to do thieving. You don't care about your weapon and spell damage. But you do care about things like increasing your movement speed, reducing the cost of roll dodge. You will actually sometimes be in medium armor, so like it's good to have them. Light armor, same thing. You have a few of them. You know, you got like magic recovery. You get some spell resistance, stuff like that. For heavy armor, you want all of them. There is a skill here. It does provide major resolve. I never used it. It has uses, but I've never used it for its major resolve. It slows you. I think it's not as nice. um, oh, and speaking of which, for major resolve, there are class abilities that provide it, and there's also this one, and then there is also balance, which is in the mages guild. It depends. It's kind of personal preference. I personally usually prefer the class ability. I find they have better utility. I have I have more than enough sustain that I don't need to use balance, but that's up to you. I'll talk about balance a little bit later, actually. But that's basically it for world. I have a vampire right now, but you don't need to be. Ulti-gen is nice. Fighters Guild, you want Silver Leash and Circle of Protection, and get this passive because it reduces the stamina cost of abilities. If you're a DK, you do not need this, but other classes generally do. Wardens do have a pull in their kit, but it's finicky. So it's situational, I'm finding, as much as I love Warden. You do want this because it reduces the cost of your stamina cost of Silver Leash. Silver Leash is, yeah, it costs magic stamina. Words are hard. For Mages Guild, you are interested in Scalding Rune unless you are a DK, and then you want balance. If you are a warden and you don't need, you can also use spell symmetry. Sometimes it's nice to have it with if you're using a lot of purge. But that's you can cast like spell symmetry and purge, but because it reduces the cost of your next ability, and I believe it'll still give you magicka back. Yeah, it'll give you magicka back. Like imagine that. For Sijic, you do want Temporal Guard, Race Against Time. And then there are some passives that you want as well. Oh, yeah, you do want probably that. And this passive here increases your duration, reducing the cost, and increasing your magicka recovery. Because why not? I'll take. Oh, recovery never hurts you. I've used time stop once. It was okay. This will give you a nice barrier, and just you don't. Most of the abilities you use aren't channels, but why not? Temporal Guard you have as a slottable as an alt on your front bar. You won't be using it as like a thing, but it's just to give you minor protection. A lot of people will use barrier on their front bar instead as a slottable, but temporal guard is also, if you're getting into stuff that really hurts, this would be nice. We don't care about that. For Undaunted, you will want Overflowing Altar. You want the green one. Inner Fire, you do want to have it just in case. You're generally not responsible for Orb, but you can. Bone Shield, again, you're generally not responsible for this, but it's good to have just in case. And then you do want your passives. Will give you just the restore stuff when you use synergies, and that will just give you extra max health, mag, and stam for every armor type you will have equipped. For Alliance War, Resolving Vigor, that's generally the morph you want. I don't know why you'd want Healing Vigor. Generally, as a tank, you're not responsible for healing the group. That's just, there might be situations where you would want
PA.
it. Yeah. PA, but yeah, also PA, but you're generally not responsible for like the the resolving one is better for tanks. And also PA, yeah. Caltrops for major breach, also another way to proc PA. There is also Magica. Is it this one? This one. Inevitable detonation. If you want a Magica way to proc PA, it's on yourself. It's only this one morph is the one that procs PA. This one is just everyone should have, and even if you're not a tank, the first one, it just makes you a little faster. Major gallop at all times. For all you have to do is level it to 3. The second one, you don't need unless you're PvPing. And then here you got your, oh, yes, horn. Horn is very important. How is it still at 3? Reviving barrier, you will want just either for the Magica aid, basically for the Magica aid.
Electric.
Yes. Are people?
With the proxy detonation one, you actually want the second one because you're not gonna have a cast time on it, so you can instantly cast it.
Oh no, but I've really. Okay, I've
That's
used
a
this one.
4-second cast time for yours, I think, right there.
No.
No, it's a 1-second cast time.
Duration? Because I used it the other day, and it was fine. It was procking on like the first when I cast it. It's just it detonates after, but I don't care about the actual detonation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Tank bars.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Tank bars. No, like I don't. I just wanted to use Magica to proc PA.
No, you do. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, if you're at it would be in a situation where if like you have to wear Spaller and you have to chain as a non-DK and you have to use PA, like this is a good way to do it. And then oh sorry, where was I? Reviving barrier. Generally you want the green one, but the red one is also useful because it gives you ult when it dissolves. Like I love ult. Efficient purge. You don't use this. Usually it's on the healers, but sometimes the tanks will use it. Guard. Sometimes you will guard the other tank, or sometimes the other tank will be guarding you. You want the red one usually, unless you're guarding a DPS. I don't know if there's any situations where you guard a DPS. But
And some sweaty score pushing ones you do,
yeah,
but not like anything else. To
yeah,
worry
that's
about.
what I thought.
No, you really don't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I haven't seen anyone. But yeah, that's the other one. It gives them like major berserk or something. I forget.
Force.
Major force. Okay, that's great. But yeah, this gives minor vitality, increases your healing and their healing done by 8%. You will be taking 30% of their damage. It's not too bad for the most part. Like healers will guard tanks sometimes, and they live, so it's okay. And then you want this passive because who doesn't like recovery? And obviously you want your racials because even if they don't necessarily benefit tanks, you still want them. And then for crafting, before I forget, you do want this one so that your potions last longer. You want this on DPS healers, everything, but sometimes people forget about this one, and there is another one in provisioning that's like that. This one, see, mine's 2 out of 3. But these two. See, I'm very good at this game. So any questions? Oh, hold on. I hear bubbles, but I can't hear you guys. I see bubbles. Oh no.
It's probably just air, like
Okay.
like a fan or something. It does that with mine a lot.
Okay, I saw them, but I'm like, they don't hear talking. All right. I'm guessing you guys are good? Yes? Okay.
It's so quiet.
I know. Thank you, Val, for coming here. Oh, wait,
No
I heard
problem.
something. I heard something. Thank you for. So I'm not talking like to, it's just, I like interaction sometimes, all right, what's next? Let's see. Essential sets. Let's go to Discord. Let's go to ranks. Basically, the ones that we have in ranks, there are pretty much what you'd need. Nothing has really changed for tanks. It's good to have a selfish set. I know we've been talking about potentially not making this a requirement, but it's a pretty decent selfish set. And then the rest are these ones here. Why is Alkosh? Okay. Alkosh isn't really used on tanks, but maybe in some situations. I don't know. If you like to DPS, it's a good thing to have. And so basically these are the things I've covered the abilities already. But if you're just starting out, something you can literally choose like two combinations of these sets and you'll be fine if you're doing dungeons and you're trying to farm stuff. But if you want to optimize something, do like Crimson TT Tremor. DPS always like pen, that way they can bring medium armor, they like that. More damage for the DPS is less work for you, so that's basically it. Yeah, and then these are all heavy sets, but don't put, except PA, don't, and EC, don't put these two on body unless that's what you intended to do, and because EC is a light set. Generally, you don't tank in light sets. You can tank in medium sets, but depends. Depends on the situation. For traits, oh, I don't have superstar, but hold on. I'm gonna get you guys I'll show you how to get here in a second. Okay. This generally for traits, what I like to do, there are different ways of doing this. There are there's differences in opinions, but this is, in my opinion, optimal for you. Basically what you do is, so your armor cap is 33.1. You want to get as close to that as you can. Don't go higher because there's no returns after 33.1, but if you're a tiny bit higher, like 100 or something, that's not a big deal. So you get to that with reinforced, and then you make the rest divines, basically. And then your Mundus Stone will be Atro or Lady if you're still not a resistance cap, but really just, yeah, maybe if you're really low CP, that's when you would do that. You still don't, and you don't have something like, what is it called? Bulwark, or you can't get, I think it's fortified. I think it's fortified. But that's basically, and you can do tri-stats, but they are really expensive. There has been recently a PvP event, 2 PvP events in a row, so if you can, try to stock up. Or if you can't afford those, just do like a combination of magicka, health, and stamina, depending on how things work out for you. This might not necessarily be the work, but is what it is. For jewelry, there are some options. I like infused and reduced spell cost, but that's because I play Necro and Warden, and we don't have stamina skills. We just don't. Everything is magicka. For DKs and Arcanists, you will have stamina skills. Some other classes might. I haven't played like Nightblade, but I'm assuming everything is magicka. I don't know. Val, if you know, let me know. Then you'll
It's a
use.
mix of two.
It's a mix of the two. Yeah, it's just you look at.
Mostly magicka skills on tanks, though. Majority of them.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I thought. So it just depends. If you have a lot of stamina skills and if you have health skills as well, you can do reduce prismatic cost. If you're using PA, and you're using a stamina skill to block it or to proc it, you would often use reduce prismatic, because you have to use 2 casts every 15-ish seconds. And it can be a lot. But if it's just stamina, and then you can use, this is for, I'll link a video that Hyper did. He also made this probably. Harmony is also another option. From what I understand, it benefits DKs the most because it, or if you're using like all three resources. There's a better mathematical breakdown in the video, but you do need a minimum of 2 synergies. If there's more, then it's even better. They do need to be coming consistently. I would not use this in pugs or dungeons because you might not have the synergies. Essentially, what Harmony does is provide you with, if the jewelry is gold, it's like 880 of every resource, and it's every time you use a synergy. So if there are 2 synergies, that's 800, and that's per piece of jewelry, right? So I don't want to do the math in my head right now, but
It's like 2.5k to 3k
yeah,
almost.
that sounds about right. Per synergy you use, and if there's 2 synergies, there's like 5 or 6 depending on timing and whatnot, because nobody is perfect and uses their synergies exactly on cooldown. But it just depends on how many synergies you have. You can also use Swift. That's in trash. There are a few other places where you want to use Swift if you're off tanking in VAS, because you do a lot of running and you run. Your back bar is infused crusher. Pretty much always. For trash, you can use charged or an absorbed stamina or frost. Crusher only affects one thing. So on trash, you're going to reduce the armor of one thing. But if you don't want to make 70 zillion ice staves, just use infused crusher on trash. You'll be fine. If you're doing double ice, you can do infused charged frost for your front bar. That's just for brittle, I believe. For shield, you treat it the same way as a armor piece. And your one hand, you have options. I like decisive because I like the ulti-gen minigame, but whatever. You have a lot of options depending on which you need. You can use like hardened, weakening, absorb magicka, stam, shock. You'd want to use charged with that. Whatever. There's lots of options. Take your pick. I'll link you, or I'll show you how to, guys, because I know if you were asking about how to, I'll put a link to this Discord. This is the Wild Heart Discord. If you want to see these channels down here that have like builds for tanks and whatnot, they didn't make it obvious. So you'll go into channels and roles, and you just up here you just select which classes you want to see builds and guides, and then they'll show up down here for you. That's basically it. It's just they didn't make it obvious. So, but I'll link this Discord in the channel in a bit. So if you want to look at those, there are videos. These videos and guides are better than anything I can do. So that's why I'm not going into specifics about every class, because honestly, I could talk about Necro alone for 45 minutes, and that's a lot. Okay. And then also just want to add, to proc your enchant, you do need to, I mean, it helps the heavy attack to proc it more, to light attack. Light attack weaving is important for tanks. It's obviously less important for DPS than for DPS. It's definitely not at the top of your priority list as a tank. You won't be getting nearly as many light attacks as the healers or the DPS, but it's a good habit to get into, regardless if you're feeling chill about things. So I also do, like Aranya said in her healing one, I do recommend playing other roles, because there's a lot of transferable skills from DPS to tank, and healer to tank, and then vice versa. So it's a good idea. And also, I think it's a good idea to play DPS, because I think it helps to know about what class you're, like, the people that you're supporting. That's basically it. I do want to talk quickly about add-ons, just because, or actually, before we start that, are there any questions about what I said? Traits. anything.
So is the reason that we're keeping any of the extra points into stamina rather than magicka, even if we use more magic skills to use synergies to keep up for block and break free?
Yeah, basically. So, I will talk about sustain in a little bit, but yeah. So, speaking of passives, um, this passive, this. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally don't. Basically, what it does, it means that when you block with your ice staff, you are using magic. You are using magicka, and if you have like you have to be thinking, first of all, you have to be thinking a lot about like, oh man, which bar am I on when I'm blocking? Like that's brain cells. Like I only got one, two sometimes. There's that, and then it does mess with your sustain. Because you might, what might end up happening is you might be low on, let's say you're low on, let's say you're blocking with stam, let's say, or you're blocking with your mag. Most of your heals on pretty much all the classes, as far as I know, they're all mag. Well, you're blocking with mag, and then you're healing with mag, and when you're blocking, you don't regen mag or stam in I guess with trifocus, with the thing that you block with, you won't be regaining that that resource. So you'll run into a problem, as you can see. Whereas if you like, let's say, so I'm blocking, so I'm using up all my mag right here, but I'm blocking, and I'm still regenning mag, so I can heal myself, even if I'm blocking the entire time. So it messes with your resources, and that's just, sorry. I will talk about resource management in a little bit, but basically, yeah, you just want to make, yeah, you do want to have your stamina above your magicka so that when you get resources, yes, you do get stamina. The one resource, so I was going to talk about this later, but I can answer it now, because we're talking, because reasons. When you get orbs or shards, so orbs and shards, they share a cooldown. And so the orbs, they give you whatever your highest resource is, and that will be stamina. And that's a good thing to have if you're blocking and you need stamina, right? So it's just, I'm sorry if I'm,
We could revisit if you had
yeah,
a
I'm
better
just
time
trying.
to get to
I'm
this.
trying to. I don't know if Val, do you have anything to add to that? I'm trying to make this into words, but I'm finding that like,
If it
st-
just comes down to like a timing rhythm thing that
mhm.
takes practice, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just I find that it's better to have like stamina for roll dodging and blocking, and
Right.
sprint, and then magicka for skills. That's,
Okay.
yeah.
The one thing that's like universal for all roles is you need your stam more than your mag, if anything.
Mhm.
Because if you have no stam and you need to block a mechanic that's like a one shot otherwise, you're dead.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very important to
Perfect.
preserve your stamina. Your
Yeah, your
magicka,
stam is more important than anything, really.
yeah, I guess
Ironically, but yeah.
your health technically, but that there's other ways to um to rectify that. There's heals. There's the healers. Yeah. Okay. What is next? Okay. I'm just going to talk. Is there any other questions? No. Good. No. Okay. Um. Okay. Add-ons. I don't have. Anyway, if you guys, let's see. Let's go taunt something. Let's find a wolf or something. And then I'll have to run away from it because. So, untaunted. I'm sure you've all seen this. It just tells you when your taunt is expiring. I didn't realize until very recently, but you can see which, like when you hover over, like let's say I'm hovering over the witch, and you can see that um, the bar has a yellow outline, and that's the thing that it's useful. Like that's the thing that I'm hovering over, right? So it's helpful when when you're taunting 7 things that have the exact same name. Anyway, I'm gonna run away because I don't want to kill them. No one needs to watch that. Anyway, Untaunted is a really good add-on. It's essential to basically tanking, unless you want to. Also, it provides those really nice red triangles, so you can see your enemies better. It helps if they would die. This is in no particular order, by the way. I like, they should have a method to hide the group. There's a lot of add-ons, or there's a number of add-ons. There is hide group and hide group necro. Hide group, the difference between those ones are, one is for necros. Hide group sometimes will, I believe, like the bodies that you generate, you won't be able to see them, and you want to be able to see them. That's so the necro version does something different, and you can see them. I actually prefer speedrun to hide the group. You can use it with a hotkey, and I find that it's less buggy, but whatever. You do want an add-on that tracks your buffs and debuffs, like their cooldowns. There's many add-ons for this. I personally prefer XOY's proc set timer. There are other ones that do this. There's Srendar, kind of buff the group. I like that one for like PA because then I can see how many people I've gotten with it. I think Hyper Tools, you can create trackers with them, but that's a lot of setup. But you can, if you like to make more custom stuff and you want to make all the stuff all match. This thing right here, this is this is a XOYs. This is a Hyper Tools tracker for Major Resolve that I have. Another add-on is, let's see if I have the settings on it. Anyway, it's the Shining. It makes your AoEs really bright and glowy, like you can turn them up to 500. And also, let's see if I can find something to tab target. As you can see, you can also increase the halo effect on tab targeted things. It's much bigger, as you can see on the skeever. I'm not going to taunt him because I don't want to, but it's really nice. And then combat metrics is really nice for sometimes you need to see like quickly you want to check your uptime on something. It's really good. Or if you want to know if you're getting a certain buff, you can just take a look in there as opposed to having to look at a live log because they take a while. And then my absolute favorite, Wizard's Wardrobe. Yes, that's exactly what I called that when I called this. Anyway, and it just helps you to have your just your setup saved, because a lot of times with supports, you will be doing for a single trial, you can have different setups for trash, for like, and even if you're in the same gear the entire time, you'll have different skills. So it really helps. You can have different CPs, and if you go into the same trial every time, you can just save it, and then you don't have to do that. It can be used to withdraw, so you just have to have your banker. And then it can also be used to deposit, but I actually personally use, this is a me thing that I've set up. I use XL Gear Banker to deposit. I just have everything in like a category, and then all I do is press deposit page, and it deposits everything just as long as it's in a category. So like it that way I have multiple tanks. I can't ever forget I don't leave stuff on other tunes, basically. So and there's also inventory insight. If you lose stuff, you can just look up. It tells you where it is. Like, I know that this Adept Rider is on Knowledge of the Divines. That's basically it. If you guys don't already have that add-on, it's a really good add-on to have. All right, any questions?
So Wizard's Wardrobe, that does champion points as well?
Yeah, it
This
does.
gear?
Yeah, it does.
Awesome.
So you can like, you can take a look. Where is it? Um, hmm, there's like a view. Where is it? I don't know. One of these things is view. Preview, there you go. So it does like your stuff. You can save a food buff. I like to do my food buffs manually just because that's just me. But it'll save your champion points and everything. So it's really nice for that. So some people say it's buggy, but I haven't had an issue. I do recommend turning auto equip off because like it can like auto equip things like for Sunspire or equip things for Loki automatically and then Yolnahkren but I find that makes it extra buggy, so I recommend turning that off. You can bind all this stuff to hotkeys as well. So yeah, any questions? Other questions? No? Okay. I also wanted to add, I know I talked about this. I will link this Wild Heart Discord in later on. I do have just kind of if you're new and you're looking for builds, I don't think anybody recommends using anyone like Allcast, Zinode if you want to get into what is it, Deltia. Their builds aren't very meta. It's fine if you want to do just like a normal dungeon here and there. Uh, I'm sure some of the builds could be fun, but if you want to get yourself into like vet and like hard mode content in the future, I don't really recommend that because the, 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 the traits are wrong. You'd be making a lot of extra gear. It's a waste of crystals. Don't do it. Basically, that's all I wanted to add. If you do like videos, Hyper's videos are really good, and he is very concise, but I think it's a good thing. He does say try stuff out for yourself, and you should. I highly recommend that. Just see what works, see what doesn't. Everyone has a different everybody has a different play style, and there are like for me, I really like having celerity. It works for me. I in other games I also play like high mobility builds. I think it's a lot more fun than just standing there and taking all the damage. I know that sometimes I do have to use bracing anchor, but I cry because I'm slow. I don't like it. But it's what it is. But yeah. Anyway, are there any? I wanted to add. I guess I forgot to write this down. For races, you can use any race, but Nord provides you with just a bit more flexibility in terms of what CP you can use and just how you set up things because there's not as many, I guess, sources of resistances because it provides you with, well, for this one. No, not that one. There we go. 2600 physical resist. It's a lot. And that way you don't necessarily have to use bulwark if you don't have to. You can, and then you put more divines pieces. That's how things seem to be working for me. It just depends, and you also get some multi-gen, which is always nice. So, but you can use other classes. Some people like Imperial. My Warden is a Red Guard, and like I literally never have to worry about stamina. It's beautiful. So you can play an Argonian. That could be fun too, because that potion passive is great. You get to heal yourself more. You can play. However, there's like many different play styles. But it, there is some flexibility there. So, but yeah, any questions? No. Okay. Okay. Now I'm done with the setting up. How to tank, because you still have to do the things. Having what's it called? Having the right setup is part of the step, the part of the process. Sorry. Okay, so your priorities as a tank are your number one priority very much is to be alive. just like dead DPS do no DPS, dead tanks don't taunt. Very closely followed by keep taunt on the things that you are that you are responsible for taunting. This varies by the trial. If you're in a dungeon, it's the things that the elites, the boss, you know. Sometimes there's taunt swaps, whatever. But those being alive and taunting, healing yourself. Also being alive, that would be the way you do that really is just to heal yourself. You need your major and minor resolve, however it is. Don't stand in stupid. Don't make sure you block the things you need to block. Do your resource management. I'll talk about resource management later, but that's what you do. But those things are sort of the bare minimum in ESO, because if you've noticed, if you ever look at logs, if you look at rosters, you'll notice that the tanks are wearing sets that also buff the group. And also, okay. So you need to make sure that you are doing those. This depends. The buffs that you're providing depending on your sets, your class, whatever. But it depends, basically. Those are your priorities. You also want to be positioning the boss properly. You do want to make sure you are facing the boss away from group. The boss, part of that is that the boss may have cleave. Not all bosses have cleave, but you assume that everything has cleave unless told otherwise, essentially, basically. And then you want to make sure that you're holding the boss like where you're supposed to, and that means also if you need to keep it away from like another thing, or for example, in Rock Grove, you want to keep oaks away from the mini because they enrage and they'll get angry and it will really, really hurt. I don't know, some things you have to hold in certain positions for other reasons. You also want to make it sure that the DPS have a place to stand, so you're not like, let's say, an oaks. You're not facing oaks into, holding him in the puddle, the pools, because that's bad. The DP, you don't want to hold him like literally in the pool, or so that right behind him there's a mess of AoEs or something. That's basically it. Or that he's backed into a wall or something. I don't know. And then after that, you will want to make sure that you're generating alt. However, get your light attacks in. They generate more alt. They get you some resources. It's good. It's good. If you look at like top logs for tanks, you will see that they are also light attacking, and they are light attacking a lot. So that's basically it. Any questions about that? Or comments? No? Okay, moving on. So for buffs, tanks of all classes are responsible for major and minor breach, and crusher. I guess major main because you're the one that has the source, but it's mostly for you, for the most part. When things hurt less, that's nice. And pierce armor, major breach, minor breach, and wall that provide penetration. So I talked about the arc thing already. Yeah, that's basically it. And then the other things just kind of depend on your sets. What sets am I wearing right now? So I'm in Yoln and Pearlescent Ward and Archdruid. So in this case, my job will be to heavy attack whatever the cooldown is. And then I'll have to make sure I taunt on my back bar at least once every 15 seconds. And Pearlescent Ward is just a passive, so it just needs to be active at all times, which it will be because it's on my body. That's basically it. So in this case, that's just what I would be doing. Yeah. Any questions there? keeping them.
Not a question, but I got to dip out. So
Okay.
thanks for the info so far.
Okay.
I got a thing starting.
Okay, have fun. Good luck. Okay.
See you guys.
Thanks for the support for coming. Okay. Okay. If you want to know about a rotation, I'm going to show you what I have written down. Hold on. Let's make this window. So rotation. First of all, you start with a countdown. This is for you to pre-buff, and so that a DPS can pre-buff. They usually want to cast a skill or 2 or 3, so that before they go in, get things up. And so for tanks, your pre-buff will be your major resolve, and then anything that you can start in combat, such as your ghost for some shields, maybe igneous weapons, I believe. Oh, I always forget.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I don't DK. And then you taunt. You start off with your range taunt. I spelled melee wrong. No one saw that. I'm making it worse. That will, so that the boss doesn't, whack a healer, because that's what they do. And then you just give them a melee taunt when they get in range. You probably want to put down wall. And then after that, it just depends on what the boss fight is. It could be anything. You might need to start chaining. You might need to suddenly block something. Who knows? It could be literally anything. But, see, and then blame healers. It was going to say profit, but then I changed it to blame healers. But basically, you put up your buffs, you replace your buffs. Your rotation is dynamic and reactionary based on what's going on. And you can anticipate things as you get more experience, and then there are add-ons that help with that. There are visual and audio cues, but add-ons also really help. I do recommend watching console players sometimes, because they see things. They know, they'll know how, Zamaja has arm signals, gang signs that signal what's happening. She does. There's a diagram out there for that. So everything is actually projected. It's just us PC plebs have add-ons, so we don't see them, but they are projected. It does help to see them, but anyway. But the add-ons can help with that. But as you get more experience, you can have a good a good sense of what could be coming and when you need to do things. So I can't really I can't say this with words, sort of thing, as to what you need to do. But yeah. Any questions about rotation? Okay. Where is that other part? Oh, okay. I have this out of order. Anyway, you guys will get to see my really cool diagrams soon. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to pull ads, and then I'll talk about resource management because it seems more relevant, with your rotation. Okay, so when you start pulling ads, this applies in dungeons and in trials. You do want to make sure you have your major resolve up, maybe a hot, because they might hurt you. Ideally, okay, so the melee ads, you only need to taunt the elites. If there's tiny little trash, it's the same height as you or smaller, chances are you don't need to taunt it. It'll just die and cleave. It'll come to you. Melee ads will run to you, but ranged ads will stay put. So there are different ways to do this. You can stack things on the ranged ads. You can line of sight them if there are multiple, or you can go out of their range and they will come. I'll have a quick demonstration as to how this is done in a second. And then you can, if you're in a dungeon, there is a set called Void Bash. It is from Vodastron, something or other, Vodastron Arena. It will, you use, what's that skill called? Shield bash?
Bash.
Bash, sealed, this lovely skill. It doesn't even need to be morphed. It's a waste of skill point to morph it, honestly. I morphed it. I don't know why. And it will pull things in that is 12 meters away or less. It's very nice. It doesn't really work in trials all that much, but in dungeons it's great. It has a cooldown. It's a fairly significant cooldown. It's like 12 seconds, I believe, but it's still better than having to pull everything in. You just void bash, and yeah, it's basically it. As I was saying for ranged ads. All right, hold on, let me just get out my beautiful diagrams. No, is it this? This? No. All right, here we go. So this, oh, come on, Illustrator. Okay, so this is the diagram of in Sunspire. This is the first ad pull. You're gonna get two cats, a cat over here and a four-legger over here and over here. Once they are dead, you will get two two-leggers, and they will spawn about here, and one tank will get them. And oh no, what am I doing? Stop. Is it this one? 150. Okay, I'll stop clicking. You'll get a fate that spawns over here. The tank that is not taking these two guys, he will taunt this lovely fate and then run over here. Because the fate doesn't move, he's a caster. But then once you move over there and you go out of his range, he's going to move over here and he's going to be in cleave. And they're all going to die. That way the DPS can kill all of these at the same time. This is the tank. This is Dora this is a DPS that never stacks, as represented by Dora the Explorer. I think.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because you always have one. So Dora. And then this is the healers scolding Dora. So this is how it is. So the other way is, again, we also have the DPS that doesn't stack. This is in Banished Cells 2. This is before the final boss. You got two little harvester girls. So if you go here, you would taunt these, right? And then you would hide behind this pillar. They can't see you anymore. So, but they're taunted. So they're gonna stack over here. They don't stack perfectly usually, but they're pretty close. If there's all this other trash around here too, and if Dora the Explorer, the one DPS that doesn't ever stack, were to stack with you, all of the trash would also come here, and you'll be able to kill it. But because Dora the Explorer ruined it, they won't. They'll just kill her. So. This also works for like trash that isn't taunted, except the DPS and the healer will have to they have to actually follow you like around a corner, but good luck getting that done. Good luck with that happening in pugs. So, but yeah, anyway, those are my glorious diagrams. I spent a lot of time on those. Well, not that much, but they were done in Illustrator. I'm a real graphic designer, guys. Come on. Okay, any questions about that? No? Okay. Okay. All right. The part that you're all waiting for. Resource management. Okay, so how do I start with this? So hold on, let me just I don't think I meant to mention this earlier. My preference for food is Jewels of Misrule. It gives you stam and magical recovery and max health. It's pretty cheap. It's like 1k and then some each. Not too bad. There is a more expensive version of this of Orgoza's Bear Haunch, but that's like 24k each. You can use it if it makes you feel lucky, I guess. But it just gives me a tiny bit more health and a tiny bit more recovery. It's most of the time it's not worth it unless you just you need a
Health
time.
recovery as well.
Oh, and health recovery as well. Yeah, which is could be useful, but yeah, I forgot about that.
It's
But
only used like mostly like in tri groups.
yeah, it's mostly in tri groups. But if you want to be fancy and you're made of money, go ahead. I'm not, so I spend everything on Hikejos. But that's basically Jewels of Misrule. So you may have noticed.
Electric.
Hmm?
Uh,
Yep.
Where does the bewitched skulls belong in that discussion?
The thing about so I'll talk about this in a moment, but actually, that's
Okay, thank
basically
you.
what I was
I'll
going to
wait.
talk about. I don't like Bewitched Sugar Skulls because while it gives you a higher health pool or a higher resource pool, what you are missing is recovery. So your like the health like the resource pool is really tiny, as you can see. It's like 15k and 19k. That is it looks like it's small, but because my skills don't actually cost me very much, so it doesn't matter as much that my skills, because I'm using reduce what is it, oh, this one's stamina. Why do I have one of those? Oh boy. It's okay. I was messing around on my, oh, because I know why. I know why. Okay. Normally this would be a reduced magical. Let's see if I have one on the bank real quick so I can demonstrate this better. There we go. I pulled the wrong one out. Okay, so because what this does is reduces the cost of each magic of the magic spells by 324 per per piece of jewelry that I have. My magic skills cost a lot less. Without that, so it doesn't matter. Without that, it'll actually cost like 1,000 more. So instead of like 22.91, it'll cost like 32.91 or something like that. So I'm able to store up more spells, sort of thing. So it doesn't matter. And then what you do is you just stack. That's why you use Atro Mundus. It would get you more recovery. You would use recovery food for even more. For more recovery, essentially, as opposed to using what's it called?
Oh,
Both, essentially. As opposed to using the skulls, because they don't give you any recovery. They give you health recovery, but health recovery is like the least important recovery that you can have, because you only get, like, my health recovery is, what is it? Like 431, and that ticks every 2 seconds. So I have and I have 40k health. Like, that does nothing. Even if I were to wear like sugar skulls, I don't even know how much recovery it gives me, but let's say it doubles it. So what? I'm gonna get 800 every 2 seconds. That's great. Oh, that doesn't do anything. Whereas here my magic recovery is 1400, and that's before potions. That's 700 every 2 seconds. So it works. I'm finding that with the divines, the sugar skulls, or not the jewels of misrule, and the reducing the magicka cost, and then the tri-stat potions, because they also give you. Here, I'll do one. That puts me up to 1800. And then with all the synergies, it's very, very hard for me to run out of magicka. I know I can essentially, if I'm getting healed, I can infinitely sustain doing purge and spell symmetry. I can do it for just as long as I'm getting healing, and that's because of like skill cost reduction. Essentially, purge is a ridiculously expensive skill. It costs like efficient purge. It still costs 4,000 magicka, but without the reduced stamina or reduced magicka, it costs over 5,000. That's insane. That would be a fifth of or a third of my magicka pool. I have used like increased. There are some people that prefer magicka recovery, infused magicka recovery. If that's what works for you, like go ahead. It means you just have more recovery, but your skills cost more. I believe if you're doing less, I think it's like 30 casts per minute or less, magicka recovery will be better. But up to I believe that's what it is. I don't know if that answers the question, but essentially what I'm trying to say is the size of your pool doesn't matter. It's how you're using the skills, and if you have the recovery to and like the cost it's all balanced, you won't have a magicka problem.
I thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I'm hoping it does.
It does.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so for resource management, so you do, again, you're getting recovery from the Outro Mundus. You're getting the skill cost reduce, or from Harmony, depending on there will be synergies. You can also heavy attack. You have to remember that your sword and board will restore stamina, and your ice staff will restore magicka. So just depending on which one you need. Your potions will restore a bunch. Essence of Health, the one with the tri-stat. You can also use the crown ones. They are, if you've been playing a long time, you should have a pile of them if you haven't been tanking, or you just haven't been using them. Don't throw them out. They're amazing. I always cry when people say, oh, I don't know what to do with them. I throw them out. It makes me so sad. I cry inside.
Give them to me.
Yeah, I know. I wish. I use them like candy. I have so many. That is also that is another way. They're not cheap, but if you're doing, a lot of tanking, I don't know what they cost these days, but they're like a 1,200 or something each.
They are really pricey now because of the
Ye-
Columbine prices, so
Yeah,
they're definitely not cheap at all.
no, they're
Use them
not.
wisely.
Yeah, use them wisely. But if you like farming, maybe it's a good time to do your what are they called? Your enchant? No, not enchanter.
Ritz.
Yeah, no, not your writs, your surveys. The the ones that give flowers. Words are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, your surveys, writs.
Alchemist surveys.
Yeah, those are the ones. That's the word.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you
Thank
get
you.
them from your Ritz though.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, do those. Do your surveys. I have a pile of them. I'm working through them right now. I've mentioned this before. Make sure you look at your skills and make sure you know which ones. So your passives and your skills, which ones give you recovery. See if you can fit them into your build. Some of them will be, giving them just you need to use them anyway, sometimes not. There is balance. I said I'm not a fan of balance because I've just always been. I started off when I started tanking. I started playing Warden, and I just found the major resolve from Frostcloak was just better. Gave me more resistances. It gave me and it gave resolve for the group, and I'm like, that's great. It's always nice when your group doesn't die. And I kept finding myself in groups where I was the only Warden support, so I just got used to not using balance. But it does give you 3,000 magicka. However, it does give you a healing debuff for like 4 seconds. I don't know. So just be aware of that. Don't use it right before something scary is going to happen, basically. So yeah, as I said, synergies, I've already explained the difference between, or the shards will give you, or shards will give you both mag and stam, but orbs will give you only mag, or only stamina essentially, or your highest resource, which should be stamina. Undaunted passive, which gives you little bits and bobs for every time you use any synergy. And then another big one, this is something I can be very guilty of, is not overcasting. So depending on your class, I know I have a habit of just sometimes I don't do it as much on Necro, but sometimes I will do it on DK, and I just really like pressing coagulating blood, and it's an expensive skill. And then I think there was one time I did this recently. I was range tanking Loki, and I just killed all of my stamina by pressing my shield. It was really gross, and I would run out of stamina, and I would promptly die because I was overcasting my shield. So you kind of have to make sure that you're using your skills when you need to, especially the really expensive ones. That's really it. And the other one is you don't need to, as a tank, you don't need to block everything. You want to block the things that are going to kill you for sure. And then the things that aren't going to kill you, a lot of times you can heal or shield through it. Or the healers will help you, whatever. Just make sure you are healing yourself. And how you figure that out, I'll be honest, it comes with like experience and just trial and error and just knowledge of the fight. That's basically it. I think I have something else written down. I've talked about trifocus. I don't like it, but if that's how you want to play, more power to you, basically. And yeah, any questions about resource management?
None here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about base game mechanics because there are some things that no one ever told me until I started tanking. So it was really embarrassing. So no one told me the difference between heavy attacks and interruptibles. So until I started tanking, I would be, the little sparkles. I used to think that they were all interrupts, but actually, the white ones, those are heavy attacks, and then the red ones are interruptibles. So I'd be out there trying to interrupt a white sparkle, and that's a heavy attack, and then I'd wonder why I'd be dead. And then someone told me, so now I know. But no one told me that, and as you guys all know, the game tutorial is trash, or the in-game tutorial is trash. So I just figured I just tell people because no one told me. Embarrassing stories, The other stuff is just, I know you're tankier, but also don't try not to stand on the red AoEs. I did talk about the shining. It'll make them bright. If it helps, make them pink. It's because there's not a lot of pink stuff on the ground usually. Or if you are pink shadow 28, just because I'm sure all of her AOs are very pink.
Yes, they are.
Yes, see, what a surprise. I'm sure you were delighted to find out that, it was a suggestion that pink is a good color.
No, actually, it took me a while to change it because I figured that pink would be too inviting and I'd want to go stand in it.
I'm not I've seen some people do white. I don't know if that's less inviting for you, but
Some people have like with the ones that just keeps like changing color over and over, and I don't understand how they play like that. Like I cannot focus. It's too distracting.
yeah, I find that too. Yeah, that's definitely yeah. But I don't think I have the frame. I feel like my frames would tank if I did that. I don't know. I don't know. That I can see how that would be distracting. That is another thing. But just don't stand on them. Basically, there are different kinds. You kind of have to there are some that kind of stay where they are. There are some that kind of follow you. You just have to, and then they drop something. For example, in Sunspire and the Last Dragon, the comets, you take those away, for example, or the comets and just Sunspire in general, that the fates do, you take those out of group. You don't get those ones as a tank very much. Can you get them as a tank? I don't know.
Ideally, no.
No, because I don't think you get them if you have an active taunt. I don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
most of the AoEs like work like that, like with some boss mechanics
yeah.
and
So
ad mechanics.
yeah, I will talk about that actually. There are some mechanics that you can't get as a tank if you have an active taunt. An example of that would be the flare in Sororia. You can't get that because I don't. That's no.
As long as you have the taunt,
Yeah, just as long as you have the taunt, it's
because you will get it if you don't.
yeah. Trust me, I know. I've forgotten it, and then I took the taunt, and I'm like, well, now what? It was a scary time. Um. Anyway, that's something that can happen. Um. Or that's something that you know. Um. Some mechanics just don't happen to you if you have a taunt, but a lot of times certain mechanics happen to you when you have the taunt. And then there is this isn't new. This is new. This is in Sanity's Edge. I was doing it on the PTS and for Yselia. I kept getting the tomb mechanic, and I was confused because I shouldn't get it because I have an active taunt, but it turns out I was just the one closest to the main tank all the
Yeah, if you're
time.
closest, you will get it.
I mean, it was day one, okay? It was day one on PTS. No one knew. So that's the excuse. No one knew about it. And I'm like, why does this keep happening? It was a bad time. I thought I was losing taunt or something. I was like, I don't understand. Um, and let's see. Yeah, another thing is just know how to recognize when your health is low, or just and make sure to heal yourself, and just make sure you know what the appropriate action to do when you are low. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the Master Sword and Board, if you have that, it is when you deal damage with puncture, you'll heal yourself for a bunch of health. In my case, I will deal myself with 6k health. For 6k health, with what I'm working with right now, and it gives you some spell resistance. Um, and the heal scales off of your max health. So what this means is, let's go to see. No, okay. It means that I have a very cheap heal. It only costs 1175 stamina, as opposed to my other heal, which cost me 2k magicka. So if for whatever reason I really need to heal myself and I'm out of magicka, but I have a pile of stam, it can happen. I can just use pierce armor. It'll heal me, which is really nice. But so that is also, I just wanted to mention that because it took me I didn't realize this until someone told me. Like, I knew it healed me, but I didn't realize that it's a really cheap heal. Whereas this actually heals me for this heals me for 6.6k just about, and this heals me for 6.1k, just like about 1k less, but it costs half the resources. So, and it's a different resource. So sometimes that's a good way to, if you're stuck in a position and you have Master Sword and Board, it's a very good set to have. It comes from the Dragon Star Arena. You don't need to do the Perfected, but it is nice if you can, because it does give, it adds 3% healing taken, which is very nice. You always want to have more stuff to healing taken. Sometimes you will need to kite stuff, and just the skill to have is just box kiting. Sometimes you go kind of in like a square, depending on what's going on. That's, I don't know. And then we're going to pretend just keeping a boss still. Let's say this tree is the boss, and let's say it placed a nasty AoE right here. So, right here. There we go. So, a thing I could do to keep the boss still is I could just move over here where the caltrops aren't, and then the boss is still, for example, because the boss is still, and the DPS like that because they don't have to move their dots. That's very good. Just, that's one of the ways. Or I can just, because if I were to move over here, the boss would move. It'll move in here, and potentially it would even move into the caltrops, which is fine for the boss, but it's not fine for the DPS. So that's just something to consider. You can move around. It depends on the boss, but usually you just go sideways and try not to stand in it. There are some situations, Yselia is one of them, where she does her fire bombs when you anticipate them coming. You run away, she does the thing, you run back to her, and she stays still. That's also another thing that's situational, but that's something that can be done. And then another thing for like keeping things still. This is an example. Oaks, when he heavies you, he moves back a step. So just something to consider. You can use that to move him backwards and forwards if you need to. There are some bosses that can't be moved backwards. One of them is Olms. If he moves forward towards into like the tank healer territory, he's stuck there until he moves, or if you lose taunt and he walks towards the DPS and swipes them a couple of times, but that's not ideal. So this hopefully the DPS can push him till jump, and then he'll be fine. Any questions about any of that, or just like how to execute things? And then I have some miscellaneous things and a few other doodads I want to show you guys that might help you.
I'm good.
Okay, I'm gonna reload UI real quick while I am showing something. Okay, I have a few things I just want to add before that are I didn't quite fit into the other stuff. The one thing is bar swap. It no longer drops block. This is fairly new, but there are other things that do. Channeled abilities, Dark Deal, that's a Sork ability. Challenge Acceleration, you would normally be using this as a tank, but I don't know. And the first cast of Stagger, I think there's some others, but just something to keep in mind, just in case. I just add this again, or I've already talked about that. Dots. Like if you have a dot on you that can't be blocked, you just have to live with it, basically. You just have to heal through it. You can't block it. It won't do anything. I think you'll just waste your stamina. And then I also recommend having a keybind to clear your tab target. Just because I know this from experience, sometimes you can't figure out which thing is tab targeted, so you end up tab targeting the wrong thing. Don't ask how I know. And another thing that I forgot to mention earlier, for add-ons, for notifications, there are like the ones, like the trial specific ones, and then you have like Codes Combat Alerts and Raid Notifier and Crutch Alerts and all of that. There is overlap onto which alerts they do. And so this is a very time-consuming task, and I'm sorry, but try to have only one notification for the mechanics that you need, and only have notifications for things that are actionable to you. I'm trying to think something that's just you just don't care about. As a tank, or as like a healer, for example. If you're the group healer in Cloud Rest, you actually don't really care about the portals that much. The portal mechanic, you can turn that off. Or for example, even if you're a healer, you can turn off Zamaja's heavy, for example, because that's, as a healer, that's not actionable to you. If she's targeting the tank, well, that's fine. That's what's supposed to happen. They're usually shielding through it. That's fine. If you're the kite healer or the group healer, or if she's targeting one of the DPS or you, there's nothing you can do. They're dead regardless. Like you can't do anything. So that's just, so make sure their thing, like you don't, or for example in Sunspire, like you don't care about the portal mechanic. It's not actionable to you. You turn that off. Turn that shit off. You don't need to see it. Basically. You need to see it because if you're, you're the portal horn, you just know that it's at like 90, 70, whatever percent, and that's it. And or you can ask the raid lead to call it out, and that's basically it. But otherwise, just turn stuff off that doesn't apply to you. And I know that this is a very daunting task, and I'm not done with doing all of it for all the trials, but trust me, it helps. The overload of information can be really overwhelming sometimes, so you want only the things you need. And then what else? Oh, I want to talk quickly about roll dodge fatigue. When you roll dodge, the more roll dodges you do, the more it costs. So as you can see, my stamina bar, this is from an add-on, but there's a little line that's kind of gray-ish. My stamina bar, it tells me how much stamina I will have when I roll dodge. And then, like, see, those all cost more because I roll dodged in what's it called? Many times in a row. If you have roll dodge fatigue, if you got those green sparks on your feetsies. And the more stacks you have, the more it costs, really. That's what it is. I just want you guys to be aware of that because I don't think everyone is. I don't know. That's basically it for that section, and I have like 2 more things I want to talk about, but that's it. Any questions? No. Okay. I'm gonna do, if you want to practice, I'm sure some of you have seen this, but okay, I'm in vet. So a place you can go if you want to practice tanking stuff, you want to go to Clockwork City, and you want to go to Asylum Sanctorum, and just teleport in there all by yourself. And we wait. Olms is a boss. He's slow, and he hits hard. And the great thing about him is that until 90%, nothing happens. Literally nothing happens. He just light attacks you, he does the breath, and he does the spits. And you can deal with those all by yourself. So if you need to test out a set, if you need to test something out, if you want to practice uptimes, you can go here, and I'll just show you what they do, like what his mechanics are real quick, and that's basically it. And you can just use it to test stuff out. If you are new, I recommend getting someone to kite the spits for you. But so here's Olbs, and basically, so that's his spit. You don't want to stand in that. That's his breath. You also don't want to stand in that. In theory, you can stand in it and block, and that's his light attack. He raises his arm up. It comes up faster than a lot of other heavy attacks, but it is a one-shot. So, like, I wasn't blocking. He hit me for 50k. So that's basically it. If you're new to this, you could get someone to kite the spits for you. And what they need to do is they just need to be further than you, and they need to be within his line of sight, and they can just roll dodge out of them or run out of them. They can heal you if you like, if that makes you better. But then if you want to like practice stagger or something, or if you want to practice EC, it's a good place to do that. Practice, keeping up your uptime, just practicing basic tank stuff. If you've, I don't know, redone your keybinds recently and you want to make sure you remember what your block is, this is a good place for this. Any questions about Olms? Also, make sure you do this on vet. On normal, he doesn't do anything. Like, he does, but he's not going to kill you. Any questions?
No, thank you for your instructions.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot to absorb. I'm sure as we revisit it,
Yeah,
I will have.
there is a video of this. It's gonna post it tomorrow. I realize I put like an hour and a half, and I'm like, oh, that'll be fine. How bad can it be? And here I am, but I'm almost done. I promise. My other thing is, I'm gonna go quickly over like how I would prepare for a fight that I've never done before. So recently, where is it? So we want to go to trial and error, and then I'll go to, why do I have a ping? What happened? Okay. Okay. There was in tanking discussion. I asked for help, so we're gonna go with, this is for, all right. So, see, we can open a browser so we can see it a bit better because I know my, so I was asked to tank main tank Yonokrin on a necro. I looked at logs, and most people do this on like not a necro, so I didn't find a whole lot of logs. So I may still found some, but I looked at what the DKs were doing, and they weren't doing anything particularly special, so I went with that. So for those that haven't done main tanked or just haven't been in a VSS hard mode for Yonokrin, as a main tank, what you have to do is you have to go under the dragon and you have to chain the flame girls in so that they don't explode and kill everyone. And under the dragon, there is a big scary AoE. It hurts. You are guarded, but is what it is. So, things that I knew. That is basically what I knew. I looked at logs. I saw that a lot of DKs had revealing flare, and they probably had what's it called, temporal guard. That gives so this is major and minor protection. That's what I did. And they had a skill to chain. DKs had chains, but as a necro, I don't have that. So that's what I did. I put them on the same bar because I would be, this is the bar that I'm chaining on. So that's just, I actually would have removed this, and I actually ended up using the other morph for my major resolve because this morph, it chains stuff in automatically, and there is, what's it called? CC immunity for the ad. So if you can't chain them multiple times in a row because reasons. So the other morph, it just reduces the cost of my next someone's cost, whatever. I could have also used balance, but I don't like balance, so this is what I did. I had my own. This is just an extra hot for me. And then the rest was just regular stuff. I would normally would have had that, but that's what it is. When I looked at my CP, I made sure that I was at max resistances, just, because it hurts under there. I had unassailable because it is a dot. Duelist rebuff, I'm guessing that's single target. Yes, single target, and bulwark and ironclad. The other stuff, I wasn't too worried about the breath. I know it doesn't hurt that bad. And then I took off celerity here and put on bracing anchor because I would be blocking. And I don't need to run around. It's fine if I'm slow. So that's basically what I did. I had my master's sword and board. I put on the decisive one because I like alt. Who doesn't? Necros are, they like, it's good if you can, what's it called? Generate lots of alt on necro, so I like using decisive, but you can use a lot of other stuff. And I also changed, I normally use magicka reduce, but this time I used prismatic because I was chaining and I had another stamp skill right here. But that's basically it. It does require a knowledge of the fight. You can look at other logs. Also, I did remove vampire because you do take extra fire damage. And I did say I just asked for advice, and this was pretty much more or less correct. I think I was told that this is bad. And also, and this is another reason where another place where you would use inner fire, because this mobilizes and you want them to move closer. But that's just how you prepare. You just kind of look at the fight, and sometimes it depends on what strategies you're using. Sometimes if you don't know, you can ask the raid lead. You can look at videos and just kind of see what damage you're taking. That'll kind of more or less tell you what your CPs need to be. And then and you also need to make sure that you are using I guess in this case it didn't matter, but if I was in like PA or something, I'd have to make sure this is on the correct bar. I also forgot to mention this at some point, and I was going to. You want to make sure that there are some sets that can be broken. And by broken, I mean they are not always active. Yolnacrin is one of them. Pearlescent Ward is not one of them. It has to be always active, and the way you find out, so Pearlescent Ward, or Yolnacrin has like a proc condition, so you have to taunt, and when you taunt, it gives minor courage for 15 seconds. Pearlescent Ward is something that's active all the time, sort of thing. So if you were to backbar it and have like Master Swordboard on your front bar, Pearlescent Ward would only be active when you're on your back bar, and that's not ideal. Most current tank sets can be backbarred just fine. Some are a little bit more annoying to backbar, like TT, because you would need to take damage on your back bar, and you need to block a hit on your back bar. And sometimes some bosses don't hit very often. So it just depends. That's basically it. But apart from that, EC, for example, is a set that, because it procs every 3 seconds, you generally don't want to backbar that. You generally don't wear EC as a tank, but that's just an example. Spell Power Cure is another one. You can front bar that technically. It's not recommended for beginners, but you want to make sure as often as you can, you are on your front bar, because it does proc once you overheal for 5 seconds, for the next 5 seconds. They have major courage, for example. So it just depends on the set, but that's just how you tell. Any questions? No?
I have none.
Okay.
I would ask that you get this on the site as quick as you can. I'll be revisiting it.
Okay, yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll set it to upload overnight, pretty much.
No hurry, just looking forward to it.
Okay, good to hear. I'm hoping, yeah, that's basically, I think, all I have. Are there any, I don't know, Val, if you have anything to add that that I missed, I might have.
I have no clue, honestly, right now.
I know I talked a lot. I'm just like, my brain. There's a lot of talking. But that's basically it. Yeah, I think that's it. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording.